From Wall Street to Main Street to help small business owners have the same capital as corporate America and give them the same resources as a larger company. We cover business funding, business credit, scaling, business consulting, and much more. Check out the website at shieldadvisorygroup.com. Welcome to the show, The Liquid Lunch Project.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Liquid Lunch Project. I am Matthew R. Meehan, alongside my partner, the Professor Luigi Rosabianca. What's on tap today, Lou?
You got to spread the word, Matt. There's only so much a principal and an operator can spread, so you obviously need the assistance of a marketing agency. So today, we have the assistance and participation with Mike Koehler. Mike Koehler is the principal and founder of Smirk New Media, based out of Oklahoma City, and he adds a tremendous amount of value to the small, medium-sized businesses that he represents. So, Mike, welcome to the podcast, and explain to small business why having a digital marketing agency on your team is a super, super asset.
Well, right now everyone is competing for dollars, but also competing for attention. And that's really what social media and the web has done to the business landscape. And it's really up to every business to get their story out there and really connect with a community in a way that's going to keep customers loyal, going to build up your reputation, and going to really affect your bottom line. And if you're opting out of that participation, you're really losing market share and losing the ability to capture, the next generation of customers. So what we really do with our clients is figure out what that story is that they have to tell. How do we turn that into content? How do we get that content to grab the attention of your audience, potential customers, and keep that relationship continuing, that give and take between valuable, interesting content and storytelling and attention/transaction.
But Mike, when clients are engaging you, they're not engaging a Jones Day, or they're not engaging a General Electric. They're engaging a firm that's called Smirk. So walk us through that kind of edginess and snarkiness that your firm brings to the table. And please, this is not an opportunity to be humble.
Okay. Well, the way we explain Smirk to people is that a smirk is at the intersection of being serious and being ridiculous. And sort of that's what your face looks like. You're smart enough to know what you're talking about, but you don't take it too seriously. And so when you're dealing with things like Twitter and TikTok and, some of the weird and strange content and communities that have popped up online, you have to realize that, on the face of it, asking someone to tweet is pretty silly. But when it comes down to the seriousness of how it affects growth for businesses, how it affects, bottom line revenue, that's the serious part. So we try to straddle that line without, getting too overwhelmed by our own, high and mighty knowledge that we have, because, we need that because this stuff is changing every day. And we always have to be, part of our jobs is a lot of what is this platform doing and how do we pivot to something good? But we also want to help brands develop their personalities, and the best way to do that and let them lower their guard a little bit is for them to understand sort of who we are and that we're not coming to them asking them to be serious. We're coming to them asking them to be sincere and true to who they are.
So, Mike, you're an OG in the digital marketing game, right? You started your company in 2010, okay? This is before Facebook even went public, so Facebook ads weren't even a thing back then. So how did you start the agency out back in 2010 when most people were still struggling to adapt from traditional media to digital media overall?
Well, I was raised in traditional media. So my dad is a newspaper guy. My first job I ever had when I turned 16 was covering ball games for the local paper. And so I grew up in traditional media. So I moved to Oklahoma City, worked at the newspaper there, and sort of became the guy who connected the dots with what was happening with all of these online tools, with social, with blogging, with live streaming, and all of that. And what I saw quickly emerging was sort of the lack of need for the middleman. Businesses were able to connect with customers and not need like the press release or not need to go through, a traditional media hit in order to explain who they were and what they were doing. So as, and coincidentally enough, that was at the same time the print journalism business was honestly hemorrhaging employees, hemorrhaging revenue. And I'm like, well, I discovered capitalism and decided, hey, I can get out here and connect directly with these businesses and explain it to them, because I was doing a lot of speaking around the country at that point, and really, really help them out and, make a living too.
So what was the pitch back then? Let's create some content. We'll start out with a blog, maybe a WordPress site, get you going, maybe get you on Google Ads at the time, because they were the biggest player in the game. They're still one of the biggest ones out there right now, right? And it's evolved consistently and compounded over the last 10 years. So you started out doing that. You got everybody on Google Ads. At what point did you start looking at other platforms and convincing your clients to get on these other platforms?
Well, Twitter was always my first love. And despite the sort of flaming garbage heap that it is today, back then it was really a great way in our community for us to share experiences and really build and connect with each other. And to me, it was always, how best do you, the original pitch was, you need to tell people how you know what you know and how you do what you do. And if you can just get that across, you're ahead of the game, because people are starting to really value that transparency of, they're not buying like slick ads and loud car dealer views and all of that. They're valuing, especially in those smaller businesses we started with, they're valuing, hey, here's who we are, here's the value we bring to you. And the more consistently people were able to tell that, the better it was. And then when the platform started picking up, all the platforms started growing, we started Smirk before Instagram was a thing. We were able to see, oh, this platform is really good for this type of audience. LinkedIn's really good for white collar, higher income, B2B type things. Instagram's really good if your audience skews female and skews suburban. So we were able, our job was, what is this new platform? Well, who's the audience for that, and how best can our client use that? And we try, we're really good at sort of being the bad guys and telling people what not to do, because in those early days, everybody was trying to do a bunch of content on a bunch of different platforms and just sort of shotgunning everything. And we were more like, hey, let's figure this out and be smart about what we're doing.
What's the counter argument to the principal and business owner that says, I got an Instagram page, I got a Facebook page, my daughter makes a post every morning, it's great before she goes to school, I don't need you?
Well, to me, there's a difference between meeting the obligation of posting something and posting content that's part of an overall strategy and arc of telling the story about what you do. So it's difference between, I'm going to take a picture of Linda at the front desk because it's Linda's birthday, and telling a story of, here's a testimonial from a great customer and why we did a certain thing that we did for them, and how that ties back into, our overall, voice and attitude and sort of theme of our culture. So it's just levels of sophistication. And, I understand why some people think, oh, I'm going to point to the youngest person in the room and give them a phone and they're going to do it. But
Nice, Mike. That 13-year-old girl is now out of a job.
right. But that's different than, how does that piece of content tie in with your other advertising and marketing? How does that tie in with what the story that you tell your customer when you're sitting across the table from them? All of those things have to work together. And it's different than just checking off the box of, hey, we put an Instagram post up today.
So essentially, you want your clients to tell a story, and you want the audience to get to know, like, and trust them at the end of the day. And I think social media really gave that opportunity to all types of businesses across the world. I mean, if you look at some of the Twitter accounts from, Wendy's and Burger King have great ones sometimes. It's the first time you didn't have to be so formal, and you can get a little bit informal and make people laugh. And that was okay. And be a little snarky and smirk a little bit.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, and we're not asking everybody to be funny. A big part of what we do, especially when we're first with a new client, is we have to figure out what that brand is. What is the voice of that brand? We get nitty gritty and like, hey, what particular words are you going to use in your vocabulary that distinguishes you from a competitor or another business down the street? So I was an English major in college, and so finally all of like the analyzing poetry comes to help for some reason. But we really look at how do we craft this story, but also how do we craft it so it echoes who you guys truly are as a brand. So,
back in the day, Facebook ads, I mean, you had a decent product and some good copy, you could sell a lot, right? Facebook got in some trouble over the last few years, right? They toned down the ways you can advertise. Apple put the iOS update in where you can't get cookied anymore, right? And Google, they're probably a little bit late to the party, but they're stopping Google Analytics right now, right?
Right.
Which means, well, for my marketing friends, they're all freaking out because they don't even understand how to get into the new Google and merge everything over. What do you see because it was so easy a few years ago, you had a lot of, I want to call them, fake marketers come in. Everybody and their brother was a marketer.
I know.
Everybody was buying a course. I'm a marketer. Let me run your ads for you, right? But now that the landscape is changing drastically, what do you see the future of these platforms being, since it's not going to be as easy as it once was?
Well, we've been thinking a lot about that. You add AI on the top of that, and that's the other thing everybody's freaking out about. And I still think it goes back to sort of the consistency of the content that you're putting out. One thing about AI is when you ask the AI, who's the best financial planner in my town, the AI still is going to go out and read the internet just like you would and be looking for quality content, somebody who knows what they're talking about. And so that's the thing about all this is, especially, even in the traditional media world, people are consuming more content than they ever have before, and they're not going to stop. It might be in a different form, but you still, at the bottom line, you still have to be communicating with potential customers about what you do and what makes you unique and why they should pick you.
So, Google became a behemoth because they were able to index the internet on search, right? With AI right now, you really don't need to index anything anymore. And Google had a great toll booth. In order to get on the first page of Google, you had to pay them, right? So now they actually got to throw the baby out with the bathwater as they merge into this AI world that we're going into with Google Bard. Now, this brings up a point that I want to make to you. Since Google Bard is searching the internet and you guys do reputation management, if we're putting in who's the best financial planner, the most logical step would be to go through the reviews on the internet and pull it up. So how important is it to keep up your reputation and your reviews on every single platform moving forward?
We have a phrase in the office, and it's reply or die. So basically, when somebody is leaving a review for your business and you don't do anything with it, you just let it sit there, especially if it's something bad, there's a real possibility that that one bad thing becomes many bad things. It's the seed of a bad reputation. And the faster you can reply and satisfy that person or turn them around or best case scenario, also rally the people who like your business to tell that person that they're full of it, the better off you're going to be. Because as much as we all love, really super creative content, amazing graphic or an amazing, short video, the studies have found that the most engaged content is what people are saying underneath that post. And so that's where you really look at, where are we putting our time and our dollars? Are we putting it into, having a spectacular photo shoot that's going to win awards? Or are we putting time and attention into making sure that we're answering every question that customers have about us, settling all those customer service concerns, making sure those reviews are good? And so that's where we say to somebody, the audience isn't demanding, you have, an award-winning short video. The audience is demanding that you give them good content and you pay attention to what they're saying.
I couldn't agree with that more, right? The whole idea of social media is to be social, right? So if you're just putting a post out there and then somebody writes a comment, you don't respond back, the algorithm's not going to pick it up the way that you want it to. Your organic post could actually work, from my understanding, just as good as some of your paid ads, right? If you're responding, right? Because the more people that engage with that ad, the more people it's going to be shown to, right? Mm-hmm. And most of the time you have a way to get out more than what you wanted to just say inside the post.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think we talked about the 15-year-old daughter who does social. There's sort of like two ends of the spectrum here. One is, hey, my daughter can do that. And the other end is like super flashy, so super flashy that it forgets the customer. And that's like Super Bowl ads are like the best example of that. Those Super Bowl ads are so self-indulgent, it's so, sort of ad agency, creative driven. And I know a ton of those people, but what gets lost is the one-on-one conversations that happen with the customer, that important transaction of, you're going to give me your attention and I'm going to give you something. And so that's where we try to live.
Mike, let's piggyback on that. I would love your personal opinion on a trend that we've noticed recently, literally over the last month or so. So there is this idea that the baby boomer is on life support. He's either sailing on his yacht or babysitting or physically on life support.
Right.
Yet recently we've seen this nostalgic trend where McDonald's has brought back Grimace and the Hamburglar. Kellogg's and Post have brought back little toys in their cereal, and every brand is resuscitating rock stars from the 70s and 80s. What is it about this nostalgic branding and marketing that tugs on our purse strings?
It sells.
Well, I think...
I'm exactly what it is.
So I just turned 50 last fall, and I'm squarely Gen X. And I think it's more for us than it's for the boomers, because we were raised on television. Literally my first memory is seeing Star Wars in the theater in 1977. It is Saturday morning cartoons, He-Man, Transformers. I love it because we control pop culture now, and it's awesome. But I think it's sort of this last gasp to really appeal to my generation and the boomers. The reason Gen X people are bitter is because boomers control pop culture up until about, when Iron Man came out.
Put together some sort of ad campaign for the Liquid Lunch project where our brand ambassador becomes J.R. Ewing. We would love it.
I don't even know who that is.
Right. I have, my kids are 23, 18, and 15. And as much as my wife and I loved all the weird pop culture references, on the Super Bowl ads, My kids didn't know a lot of who those people were. You put some reference to the Facts of Life or a reference to Dallas and Dynasty. Those kids, they don't know what that is. And so it's really sort of, hey, let's pump those last dollars out of those boomers and those Gen Xers. But I think they're also, what you're not seeing is those same companies are, we're putting a lot of attention into Instagram Reels and TikTok. And because if you have the loyalty of the, honestly, 10 to 18-year-old now, those people, they're going to stick with you because those kids are raised on e-commerce. They're raised on, I can see something and push a button and it'll be in my house tomorrow. And so if you get the loyalty of those people, that's where big investments are really going.
People forget that the 30-year-old today is going to be the 35-year-old tomorrow, in a few years, right? In 5 years. They forget that they get older, right? But they also forget the generation behind them that's going to come up. One of the best people that does the nostalgia play, Disney. They remake everything. Right. And, right now, I'll tell you one that I'm excited about. Indiana Jones is coming out at the end of this month, right? I want to go see it, right? Daughters. I have two daughters, right?
Right.
9 and 11, and they're all into it too. So you get to share that childhood memory that you had when you had all the freedom in the world, no worries, no financial responsibility. And you remember those good feelings you get to share with your kids, right?
Yeah, I mean,
that will always sell.
Yeah, I mean, I was 9 when Raiders came out in 1981. I saw it at the drive-in. I'm sort of a movie, and I'm a nerd, so. But yeah, I think that's exactly why they're doing the live remakes. Everything is IP too. I mean, for a lot of these places, what assets do we have in house? We have this whole vault of information, and that's true for Disney. But the little guys also can't forget that, especially if you're a family-run business that have been around for a while. You have assets, which is the 20, 50 years that you've been in business. And the knowledge that's in your head. And so that's where these companies really need to leverage, what they have and just reintroducing it every generation or every new customer audience segment is really a benefit for them. But it's being able to know exactly what it is that you're talking about and talking about it in a very, consistent, appealing sort of way.
So, Mike, I have a question for you. How do you get your clients? I ask every marketer this. How do you get your clients? Are you running ads for your own business?
So, yeah, we run ads. It helps to have been around for 13 years. That helps the SEO tremendously. So I have a partner who runs the day-to-day operations. She was employee number 1, and now she's our president, and I do all of our business development. And, what I do is tell Smirk story around town. And we're able to market ourselves as Oklahoma City's original digital marketing agency because I was first out the door, and that's the story that we're telling. And we go around, and it's my job and our brand's job to, be the resource for knowing what's going on in this space. And I'm happy to do that. So,
Mike, I'm reading between the lines. For people that are hyper-focused on SEO, is some valid advice to them that time heals all wounds? I mean, there is an attrition game. I mean, your SEO is super strong because you've been in business 13 years.
Right.
So obviously a startup can't compete with you. Is that part of the strategy, just perseverance?
Well, yeah. Obviously, obviously there's a big advantage to that. And there's some people who are never going to catch up with us. But the reason they're never going to catch up with us is that not only do we have 13 years, of optimization, but we're not stopping. We're continuing to do that. And that's where this AI conversation comes online, because Google, part of the algorithm now, and I'm sure part of the algorithm that the AI is going to eat up is going to be fresh and relevant. So you can't just rest on oh, I've got 10 years worth of blogs out there, but I haven't posted in 18 months. That's the AI is going to ignore that in favor of, hey, who's writing about their services most recently, who has a new case study on their page. So it's, it's a game that you got to play, but you can't let off the gas.
So let's go back 15, 20 years. You're watching a local sports game and you've got to go to press within a couple of hours.
Yep.
Were you indoctrinated with the social media mindset from early on where you would have to digest something, regurgitate it within an hour or two because you had that press deadline because it had to show up in the morning mailbox?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, before I started my agency, I worked most every night from 3 p.m. to 1 o'clock in the morning. So my life was awesome. But yeah, you really, what sports really helped with was the fact that I knew that people were passionate about consuming what we were putting out. It was different than sort of news stories. You didn't have, you didn't have people waiting on their doorstep the next morning to read about the city council meeting. But, OU football plays Texas on Sunday morning. People want to read, can't get enough of that stuff. And that's to me was what clicked was take care of your audience, take care of your customers, and give them what they're telling you to give them. Don't give them what you think is good for them to have. Give them hamburgers, don't give them broccoli, is what we used to say.
So, Mike, can you tell everybody how to get in touch with you on the socials and find Smirk New Media?
Sure. So we're the only Smirk New Media in the world. So that's all of our socials is just Smirk New Media. SmirkNewMedia.com is the web address. All my socials are MKOKC. So I'm pretty easy to find too. And, we've got a contact form on there. I do a lot of, I'll talk to anybody for a half an hour about their business. So we do a lot of sort of free consult, just pick the brain sessions. And, obviously from being on here, I love to hear myself talk. So it's good for business stuff.
So, Mike, last question before I let you run. If you had to pick just one platform or vertical right now, and you can only go into one of them, what would it be?
I'm a 50-year-old man, obviously, but I really love what TikTok is doing just based on how strong the niches are, how good the communities are now. It reminds me of YouTube from like 10 years ago. Like if you just want to build your own bubble around content, subject matter that you're interested in, you can do that on TikTok now and have a really good time. There's great creators on there. And then on the business side, if I'm selling something, I know that I can find, the influencer space is really good. So I love short video. And I think TikTok's doing a great job with that.
Mike, thanks so much for being here. That's a wrap, a Liquid Lunch Project. We'll see you on the next episode.
Absolutely. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you for listening to the show. And make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. We'll see you on the next episode of the Liquid Lunch Project.